Hello everyone, what's up? My name is Kai. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be interviewing my good friend Kevin here on his software engineering experience within Palantir as well as Optiver in an upcoming episode. Welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's get into it. This is the video roadmap. We'll be going into our introductions. We'll also be talking about Kevin's college life at UPenn, his summer experience at AMD, as well as his experience at Palantir this past fall. We'll also be going into Palantir sort of internship, recruitment, and other deep dive questions. And then in an upcoming episode, or like the part 2 of this, we'll be going to his quant software engineering experience and his time at Optiver and recruitment for other quant shops. So just to introduce myself, hello, my name is Kai. I'm a senior at Wharton where I'm studying finance, business analytics, minor in computer science, minor in data science. My biggest role model is Jimmy Chin, who's this Chinese-American adventure photographer, and I want to build an outdoor gear company. So that's Jimmy Chin at the bottom.
Oh shit. Dude.
Super dope guy.
Bro's got the man bun. That shit's badass.
Yeah, he's got the man bun. He's just looking super Chad going up that like ice wall thing. And that's what I want to do. So yeah.
Well, so my name is Kevin. I'm currently a senior at Penn studying computer science and economics in the College of Arts and Sciences. And yeah, I guess before I came to Penn, I was at UMich studying biochemistry. I declared computer science like my second semester at UMich, but like I kind of already knew I was leaving, so I didn't really... I wasn't really a CS student at UMich, I guess. But yeah, I guess I could talk about... Yeah, well, I interned at Palantir, obviously, and I had a chance to work at Optiver before that. And yeah, shit, I didn't prepare anything.
No, we're good.
All right, okay.
It's good. We can move on.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. So now we're gonna go into Kevin's life, at college life at Penn, and I first met him in my sophomore year when he just transferred over. So I just wanted to ask you, like, what was the experience like going from UMich to UPenn? Like, what was the culture? Was there like a culture change, and like how was it for you, like adjusting to Penn?
Yeah. So I guess, like, to be honest, I feel like the experience was actually quite difficult. I feel like I wasn't really prepared. I didn't really understand what it would be like to kind of transfer and start over. And I guess, like when I came to Penn, it really felt like I was starting over all over again, like basically starting freshman year in another college. But yeah. I think the one like major difference is that, like, I think everyone else in my grade had kind of already been here for a year, and there was like less of that like, oh, I just got here, I want to meet new people energy. Whereas, like, if you join a school as a freshman, I feel like everyone has that kind of same feeling. They're in the same spot, right? And I guess, like, it was a little difficult because it felt like everyone kind of already was like in their established or niche. They kind of were already doing their own thing, and I was just kind of here, like, trying to like understand what's going on. I felt a little lost, especially my first semester, I'd say.
And then, like, how were you able to find friends or like just interact with people? Because I know that we met through a
CSA, right?
CSA, like a Chinese Students Association like club event. But like, were there any other opportunities where you were able to like meet new people like in classes or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, and I think eventually, like, over time, it did get a lot better. But I think, like, for me, mainly, it was, like, joining Hack for Impact, which is, I guess for people who don't go to Penn or people who aren't familiar, is a club at Penn that's, like, kind of focused on writing software for nonprofits, building projects for nonprofits. We scope out some projects, like, every single semester. We get in contact with these companies or organizations, and we figure out, like, hey, what can we do for you?
What are some like example projects that you've like worked on?
So one thing that I worked on was actually not really like specifically for a nonprofit. It was called like internal boilerplate. It was basically to develop like a React component for, I guess like integrating like chatbots into a nonprofit's website.
Okay. I've seen that around on websites.
Yeah. It was I think it was a pretty technically interesting project, and it was like a good intro to like, I guess like doing web dev stuff. But I guess like the other part of it is that like I think you're familiar with this, but like I think club culture at Penn is very, it leans towards the social side. Like I feel like, you know, you have a club that says that it does something, but there's also a very strong emphasis on like the culture, like and like being with the people there more so than even like what you're actually doing. And I feel like in some sense that was kind of what the vibes were like at Hack. Like you know, we did enjoy the work that we did, but I think like there was also a very strong emphasis on like socializing together, being together, and doing a bunch of events together. And I think that was, you know, pretty helpful as someone who just transferred.
Gotcha. So I guess you made a lot of like friends or just connections through that manner then.
Yeah, through Hack, and also through like, you know, club projects. I was actually part of Upgrade.
What's that?
That was, it's called the, I think it's called the University of Pennsylvania Game Research and Development Club.
Isn't that the?
It's the Luigi Mangione one. Yeah.
The Luigi Mangione club.
Dude, it was kind of crazy. Like I like Googled his LinkedIn now, which is kind of crazy. But I Googled his LinkedIn and it was like, oh, founder of Upgrade. And I was like, holy shit. That was kind of crazy.
Was this before the Luigi incident when you searched this up, or like it was just like after?
No, this is after. Like I saw his name and I was like, oh, this guy goes to UPenn. I wonder what he was involved in. And I just like searched it up.
Yeah, that must have been a bit crazy.
That was crazy, yeah. But it was kind of interesting. I read an article from the DP about him talking about like him like founding the club, and I think he was
I saw that,
very, very focused on like being antithetical to like the stereotypical like club culture at Penn. Like he made it a point that like everyone can join Upgrade, and that like everyone can like do something interesting there and be part of the community without some kind of like rigorous admission process that I feel like you see at most clubs.
Yeah, I feel like especially with like Wharton and I guess engineering as well, the club application process is like
it's kind of crazy.
First round interview, second round interview, third round interview, final round interview. Like it's like a whole. It's so hard to get into it, and yeah, just like to move on. I was wondering like, why did you ended up choosing computer science? Like, did you have a background in computer science in high school, or like, do you come from like a family background of computer science? Like, why the switch, and like, what made you stick to it later on?
Yeah. I think I'm probably a little different from like stereotypical CS majors in that like I actually started pretty late. Like I took some CS classes at UMich in my spring semester, but like I was not into CS at all. When I went to college, I was planning on like becoming like a biochem researcher maybe going to med school, but like at the time it was a little bit difficult because I was an international student, and getting into med school as like an international was pretty difficult. Like in high school, like I guess like I learned a little bit of coding like in like AP CSA, like the computer science AP exam, right? And then I guess like what really brought me and like got me like into computer science was like when I was working at a lab at UMich, and basically like I was doing a lot of like bioinformatics work. So I was like coding a lot. I was like looking at data sets. I was like building models to like analyze the data, right? And I think like through that process, I was like, oh wait, this is kind of cool. I actually low-key like this better than like the wet lab stuff that I was doing. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like that kind of was the start of it. And then, you know, when I came to Penn, I feel like there was also like an influence to like study a major that earned money. And I feel like computer science was kind of like one of the default choices that you had.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, like, it's not the best reason out there, but, you know, it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Gotcha. And then, like, outside of school, like, were there any other things that you, like, enjoy doing, like running or, like, any other hobbies that you want to talk about?
Yeah. So, you know, I do love running. I do it less often nowadays, but, like, in high school, like, I used to run, like, maybe 5-6 miles every day. I was in the cross country team, and you know, I love doing the whole bit. I also enjoy cooking. You know, I don't know.
What's the top chef thing what's the top chef thing that you've ever done? Like, what's like your biggest accomplishment?
Okay,
with
so
cooking?
according to my girlfriend, my lemon crusted cod is among the best.
Oh.
It's personally, I like the steaks that I make the best because I can like buy a fancy cut of steak and prepare it pretty well. But my girlfriend really likes the lemon crusted cod, so
Gotcha.
got a vote for that.
Gotcha. Cool. And then.
Oh, and also, sorry.
Yeah.
sorry. And the one I've been avoiding is that I also with my girlfriend I keep 15 or so snakes. We kind of started this hobby like a year ago or so, and we're planning on like breeding them. As you can see, I have a snake on my neck right now. Where's its head? Is it?
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, her name is Nyx. She is a Mexican black king snake. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's also in the middle of a shed right now. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but her eyes are like a little milky. That's because her body is basically getting ready to like shed its scales. Yeah. And like one of the scales in a snake is like on its eye. It's like an eye cap, right? And as part of that preparation, like the eye cap gets loose, I believe, and it like clouds their vision. So she's kind of blind right now.
Yeah. Wait, do they shed like? And this is very quick, but do they shed from the head at first, or like do they shed like all over the body? Or,
it depends. I think like the ideal way that a snake sheds is like by like pulling from the head to the rest of the body.
How does it pull? Like
it like rubs against stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like there's like many instances of like botched sheds. Actually, it happened recently with one of our ball pythons. Like, we kept it under the care of like some like really shitty like reptile boarding shelter because like certain reasons, and like, well, we didn't know it was shitty at the time, but like I feel like our evaluation is that it's quite shitty now. Yeah. But basically, they didn't give the snake enough moisture when it was going to shed. So basically, like the shed like partially came off, and when we got it, there was like a bunch of dead skin just like flakes on the snake itself. And I mean, it was a whole process getting the rest of it off. We had to give it a water bath, and then we had to like slowly help like rub it off.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Cool.
Okay, yeah.
The more you know. Wait, don't say sorry. This is super cool. Now I just want to ask you about your your experience at AMD. And just for the people watching who don't know what AMD is, it's like from what I know, they make graphics. They make graphics cards and like.
They make CPUs too. Yeah.
They make CPUs and like the RX 580 is my favorite graphics card just because I bought it one time, and yeah, it's like Nvidia's like competitor slash.
So who do you think is better, AMD or Nvidia? Like.
I mean,
I won't judge you for your answer. It's okay.
So I personally would say AMD just because I got into a Investopedia like stock simulator in middle school.
Oh, dude, I did that shit too.
Yeah. And I invested in AMD and I made so much fake money or like paper money off of it, and I didn't know what Nvidia was at the time. So like AMD was the first graphics card company that I was introduced to.
Wait, that's so funny. I believe I bought, like when I was doing the Investopedia stock simulator thing, I bought a ton of Nvidia shares, I bought a ton of AMD shares, and I bought a ton of like Google shares, which is like, because like I kind of like building PCs as a kid, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna buy like all the tech stocks that I'm like familiar with.
Gotcha. Were you like a video gamer or?
Yeah. I was in like middle school and high school, I put like collectively like 2,000 maybe more hours into CS:GO. It's kind of bad.
Yeah, I love CS:GO. That's the game, man.
The worst part is I'm fucking ass cheeks at the game still. Like,
okay.
I just like do not have reactions.
No, that's awesome though. But I was wondering like what it says here that you've built like DevOps apps that enhance developer productivity. Can you talk about that or?
Yeah. So like at AMD, I was part of the data analytics and science hub team. I might be butchering it. I'm sorry. But basically, we were like analyzing a lot of the like manufacturing yield data. Like AMD works with like a ton of different manufacturers to like actually make their wafers, I believe. And so we had like this one piece of software called Dotspot. It's made by some random startup, and it was supposed to be this like AI powered business analytics software where you're able to like build dashboards and stuff. You're able to like connect it with like a database, connect it with like a spreadsheet, and like build dashboards with it. The problem was that like you couldn't really save your progress with ThoughtSpot. Like you change something, you break something, that's it. You can't revert. There's no like undo button. So essentially what I was building was kind of like Git support for ThoughtSpot. Like they had an option to like export like whatever you were doing at the time into some kind of config file, and then I would just like write scripts to like pull that config file, push it into a repo, and then like basically give you the ability to like revert back to a previous state if you fucked up your visualizations. That was kind of like the gist of what I worked on. Frankly, I feel like my memory of it is a little hazy now, just because it's been like
it's been a while.
it's almost been 2 years, man. It's crazy. But yeah, I really enjoyed that experience. Like I thought my team was great, and it was mostly like boomer age people. So like I felt like culturally I wasn't that into the team, but like you know, I felt like everyone was super nice, and I really enjoyed talking with the people there.
Okay, that's cool. All right, next slide.
Yeah.
And now we'll be going to your Palantir experience this past fall. And just for the people who don't know, and like you can feel free to add on to this, but like Palantir is basically like a big data software company that does big data, I guess, in AI. And they have like 3 main products. So one is Gotham, which is for like the defense industry. So that's like military data, all the stuff that you don't know at all about.
Yeah.
and then they have Foundry, which is for like big business, just like managing their supply chain, finances, data analytics, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then Apollo is from according to ChatGPT, but it's their
that's crazy.
it's their continuous delivery platform, and it just ensures that Gotham and Foundry are like working up to par. And then on the right here is Alex Karp. He's the CEO.
Oh, yeah, Daddy Karp.
Yeah, Daddy Karp. But he actually went to he's from Philadelphia, which I'm from.
Oh, sure.
And he went to Central High School, which is I didn't go to Central High School, but it's like my competitive. It's like my like main. It's the rival high school that I went to.
What was your high school again?
Julia R. Master in high school.
I
so
see.
like, like we were like first in terms of academics, and Central was second in academics. So we would always like go on a little rivalry. Do you have anything to add to what Palantir is? Or?
Yeah. So disclaimer: I honestly know fuck all about the company. Like, I know this sounds bad because I worked there for like 3.5 months, but like, I honestly I feel like I honestly feel like they like intentionally obscure what the company does so that like people can like pump the stock up. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But like what Apollo was, and that was kind of the branch that I worked on, is it's not only a CD system for Gotham and Foundry. That's what it started off as. It also kind of expands to like any type of software that you're deploying. So essentially Apollo is this like software deployment system for any application that you want to release. Like, let's say you're building, I don't know, like an app, like a dashboard that helps you control a drone or something, right? And you're like trying to update that software, right? You basically, with Apollo set up, you can like push that like new version of software to Apollo, and then Apollo will like intelligently figure out ways to like push that software to like the actual like deployed units that use your software. And like it does it intelligently because, you know, like maybe certain deployed units are lower stakes, and like if you fuck up a piece of software on that unit, then it's okay. Like you can just say, oh, that's bad, and then we can like revert back. Whereas like, you know, maybe you have a piece of software or you have a deployment that's very mission critical, and if anything goes wrong over there, then, you know, that's like bad, right? And so Apollo like intelligently manages this. It'll like probably like first push that new binary into like something that's low stakes, make sure that it works, like let it like soak in for like 24 hours. And
what do you mean like low stakes? Like in like a controlled like?
Yeah, in like a controlled environment. Yeah, like it'll give it to like 2 deployments at first, and then like see what happens. Like that's kind of what Apollo calls like soaking. Basically, it like gives that piece of it gives the deployment like a new version of the software, and then it'll just observe. Like it'll look at the metrics that the binary is emitting, and if no errors pop up and no like human intervention occurs, then it'll say, hey, okay, this looks kind of legit, so I'm gonna like move on and give it to like another wave of people or another wave of deployments.
Is like Apollo, is that like used for, or like used by or used for like other defense companies or like other big tech or like large companies, or like can like normal people or just like regular people use it? Like what's like the use cases for people using Apollo?
So Apollo is like you can use it like as like a regular civilian. I think Apollo right now is geared towards like military use cases, but it certainly can be used in like regular like tech company use cases. I mean, you could probably implement it for like a club or like a club writing software, of course.
Okay.
But like it's kind of overkill, right? And obviously it costs a lot of money. Like in any case where like you're deploying software, you can use Apollo basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But like I think where it stands out, and like I guess kind of like from my understanding of like where the company was going, I think people were trying to gear Apollo towards military use cases. There's like special features in Apollo that allow you to like deal with like top secret deployments, where like maybe like that top secret deployment can't send information back to the main base or the main servers that are managing these deployments, right? So there's like certain like guarantees, and you can get like certifications from the military, I believe. Like there's something called like IL5. I'm honestly like not super familiar with the terminology, but like you can like get certified by the military or some governing group to say like, hey, the software is safe to use in the front lines of a conflict.
Interesting. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
And let me know if like what I'm saying doesn't make sense. By the way, I feel like I can.
I feel like it makes sense. It's like a lot to process in my head, but I get the overall picture of things.
Okay, that's fair.
Like,
that's fair. Yeah.
Of like, hey, like you know, like you put your military application onto Apollo, and sometimes like that information, like that, like the data that it sends back out doesn't go back to you, but it goes to like another sort of like entity just to keep the security clearance or like.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Something like that.
For like top secret deployments, like sometimes you don't want to send to any entity, right? Like that could potentially cause issues, or maybe it's like physically like air gaps, right? Like sometimes like you have a deployment, like maybe on like maybe some kind of device that's like physically like severed from the rest of the world, so that no one can access it except like maybe if you like bring like a CD to like give it new information. That's kind of like the situations that Apollo like is really meant to deal with.
Oh, so like, wait, can you like talk about like how this CD, like where would the CD injection process like fit within the process of like Apollo and like the
So like, for example, like maybe you have like a Humvee that's like running some software to like. I feel like all I can think about is military use cases here, but like there are other use cases here. Yeah, like let's say you have a Humvee that is like running some kind of software to like target things or something. I don't know, right? Like that Humvee might be like completely air gapped, like in that like it's not allowed to access the rest of the internet at all, because if it does, that could pose security risks, right? So what happens is like, you know, the way you get new software onto that Humvee is you literally like burn information onto a CD or like a USB drive, and then you bring that USB drive over to that Humvee and plug it in and let it update from that information there. And Apollo handles like what you actually put into that USB drive. And then there's Apollo software running on the Humvee too that deals with like unpacking that information and like making sense of it basically.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
So it's a lot of like quality of life stuff that like really helps with like managing these deployments.
Gotcha. And then now that we've talked about what Palantir is, can you explain to me like your experience within the authentication token management part within Apollo, and like what Kubernetes is and like just like everything about that, because like this seems really cool, but as someone, you know, who doesn't know anything about it, like,
no, I totally get it. I feel like literally like half a year ago I was like sending a meme to my friend, and it was just like I don't remember the exact contents of the meme, but it was just like, what the fuck is a Kubernetes? Which is like kind of what I felt when I came in, right? But I guess essentially what I was working on, or part of what I was working on, because my experience at Palantir was kind of interesting because I actually didn't have like a set project there. I was kind of just like working as like a regular software engineer. I was just working on whatever workflows my team was doing. But essentially, the brunt of my work was focused on this one service that was like basically like dealing with how you manage like authentication tokens with like a hub. And for context, sorry, it's like you have these like deployments, right? Like I mentioned earlier. These deployments might need to like pull that information, like the binary information, from a hub or some other source that like contains the new releases of software, right? And like I guess binary maybe is a little bit too specific of a word. Like you know how like when you like write a new piece of software, it compiles into a binary. Yeah, that's kind of like the binary I'm talking about. So like essentially you have these like deployments trying to pull the new versions of software from some centralized server, right? But like how do you like manage that communication, right? You need authentication tokens, or you need some sort of authentication to make sure that you're not some random stranger just pulling the software from the server.
So it's like you're grabbing like little packets of like data from the server, and like each pack has like a authentication token. Is that what you were saying, or?
Well, this goes a little bit more into like how like software communicates with each other, right? But essentially like this is just kind of like a regular authentication workflow, right? It'll probably be like, okay, this deployment will have some kind of token, right? It'll send that token over to the central server. The central server will like double check, hey, is this token legit, right? And if it verifies that it's legit, then it'll send the rest of the information over.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so there's some, I guess like there's some certain interesting problems in that space of like, how do you like manage those tokens? How do you make sure those tokens don't expire? If the tokens are about to expire, what do? You probably want to talk to that server again and say, hey, can I get a new refresh token that won't be expiring for another 7 days or so? Like,
gotcha.
That's kind of like the logic that I was working on.
Gotcha. And can you re-explain or just like maybe go into like what Kubernetes is?
Oh yeah, sorry, I completely skipped over that.
Yeah, because you just said like what the
fuck is that? Oh wait, am I allowed to swear on you?
I mean,
do you have to like bleep this out?
No, I'm not going to bleep it out, but like you
okay, it's like bad for the algorithm.
Do you want us to be bleeped out?
I don't care.
I don't really care as well.
Okay. I just want to. All right, sure. But yeah, like, what is Kubernetes?
Yeah, what is Kubernetes? Like that sounds like like Galileo or like some like famous scientist person like Kubernetes.
Like Dr. Kubernetes.
Yeah.
So Kubernetes, and someone's probably gonna like destroy me in the comments here, but like my understanding of what Kubernetes is it's this like deployment management software that you run. Okay, hold on. Let's take a step back here. Let's take a step back.
Okay, let's do this. Yeah.
So, are you familiar with like container? Actually, I should probably explain what containerization is first.
Yeah.
Containerization is like kind of the idea of like, so before containerization existed, you had a problem where like you send a piece of code to your friend, right? And your friend will be like, yo, this shit doesn't run on my computer, right? That's probably happened to you too, right? Like you send like a copy of a file, and then your friend tries to run it, and like some random error occurs on his computer, but it works on your computer, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of containerization is to have a standard layer that every single app runs on. So the layer is exactly the same on your friend's computer and your computer. So if it works on your computer, there should be certain guarantees that it works on your friend's computer.
Is that like operating system or like?
It simulates the operating system.
Okay.
It simulates the processes that or it simulates the tools that an operating system might give someone.
Gotcha.
Right, and it like a container would probably have like certain like metadata or like configuration information. So like essentially what I can do instead of sending you just the file is I can send you like a configuration file that will be a series of instructions on how to set up like a fresh new copy of an operating system so that you can run this.
Gotcha.
And you can guarantee that it works.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of the idea in theory of how it should work, right? And Kubernetes is kind of the a piece of software that lets you like manage these containers and run them together. So like for example, one thing that Kubernetes can do is if you want to make sure that like this service that you're running in a container is always going to be up, it'll like maybe have like a copy of the service, and then it'll run like normal. But like, let's say that service crashes, right? Kubernetes will like look at like the container and say, oh crap, this container died. Let's spin up a new one, right?
Okay.
So that's like one thing that Kubernetes can do. It's kind of like container management. Like
Gotcha.
another thing that Kubernetes can do is like, for example, like you have two services. One is like the main service, one is a backup service, right? And then how do you determine which one is the main service and which one is the backup service? Like there's like some kind of like distributed scheme that has to occur, right? And Kubernetes kind of facilitates that decision-making process. I think someone once told me that like the more you understand something, the simpler you can like explain it. And right now I feel like I'm explaining it terribly, which is to say I don't really understand Kubernetes that well myself.
Yeah.
Those are some things that it can do. But yeah, from my understanding, it's like container management.
So yeah, container management, and it helps like distribute workflows between different like backup versus primary like devices.
Yeah, like that's like one use case of it. But like essentially it's kind of just like managing like clusters of these containers together.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. And then now we're gonna go into like more deep dive Palantir recruitment questions, and like feel free to not answer any of these, just like if there's like any IP issues.
Sure.
But we had a subscriber who wrote a few questions, and I decided to like write them here. Like, what was your recruitment timeline like, and like how smoothly were you going in between the rounds, and what was like the interview like? Was it like very much leak code-esque, or were there like case studies? Like, were there main teasers? What was everything like?
Yeah. So I think Palantir actually has a very, very unique recruiting process. There's a little bit of leak code in it, but I think for the most part, it's asking you like design questions. They're looking to see how you think. So I guess like a little bit of a timeline of like what happened for me, and I think I'm allowed to discuss this, is I applied around like September of like last year,
2024.
Yeah, probably 2024 September.
Yeah.
No, 2023 September.
Oh, but you started in October 2024. Right?
Yeah. So like I applied, and then I received what's called like an OA, online assessment, and then basically the online assessment contained like two like simple leak code questions that you solve, and after that you chat with the recruiter. The recruiter will ask like, hey, what are your interests? Why do you want to join Palantir? Just like standard like HR stuff like that. And then after that, what happens is you do like what's called like a technical round. The technical round is kind of like standard leak code. It's just like
a hard problem, like a medium problem, like a dynamic programming problem, or like what's
I got a leak code easy, actually.
You got a leak code easy?
Yeah, so I got lucky, I think. Yeah, I've heard of people getting harder problems, but like they actually don't really care that much, I think, about like your like data structures and algorithms ability.
Really?
Yeah. And then I think the next part, which is like the on-site, is like kind of the interesting part, because they have two rounds. One is called a learning round, and the other is called the decomp round, the decomposition round.
Okay.
So the learning round is kind of like where you are given like an existing code base, probably just a couple files, and like maybe some like class definitions and function definitions, and you're supposed to like read through and understand what it's doing.
Okay.
And then what you do is you solve a series of questions where it's asking you to use the tools that they give you to like solve another problem. Okay. So it's basically testing you on like how quickly you can learn this new library or this new set of tools, and how quickly can you learn to use and adapt it to another problem.
Are the problems that you solve, is that like, is it like a math problem or like an algorithm problem, or is it more like building like a new thing, or building a?
It's very much like standard software engineering. Like it's like you're using this like tool library to like do something. Like like for example, like I don't know, like, and this is not something I got, but like for example, like you're building a tool to like I don't know, fetch data from some server, right? And they give you some library to like fetch data. And then you're supposed to use that library and then maybe some other information to like actually fetch like relevant data from some other problem.
Okay, and they'll give you like, will they give you like example test cases and like a bunch of stuff like that?
I don't think they give me any test cases, but like the guy clearly knew how to use the library, so he could like tell me if I was like doing something wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then like, can you tell me about the decomp part?
Yeah. So the decomp is kind of similar to like how you would describe like a traditional system design round, I'd say. Like they'll give you some sort of problem to solve, like for example, like uh, design a design a shopping system for like Amazon or something like that.
How would you do that?
Shit, dude. I can't be posing questions I don't know the answer to. I don't know. I'd probably talk about like the user interface, like what I want the user workflow to be like for a consumer, and then maybe for like a merchant. And then I talk about like what APIs I would expose. Like, you don't have to like define the APIs using some kind of framework. You just have to say like, oh, I want an API to log in. I want an API to log out. I want an API to add an item to a cart. I want an API to like increase the number of items for an item in a cart. Like just like standard stuff that you'd imagine would be reasonable, right? And then you probably talk about like how you would store all of that information, right? So like a merchant uploads a new item into Amazon or whatever, right? So that probably comes with a couple of pictures, right?
Yeah.
Where do you store those pictures? You probably use S3. You probably use some sort of like static storage management. How do you store the rest of the metadata? How do you store the price? How do you store I don't know, the description that the author, that the seller makes for the product, right? You probably use some sort of SQL database, right? You define what the tables look like. You define the relationships between the tables. I don't know if you've taken databases, but
I have, yeah.
Yeah. Like you kind of like define all of these things, and they're very flexible throughout the whole process. Like they're not looking for a specific technology. They're not looking for a specific way to do things. They just want to see that you can like kind of get a general grasp of like how things work in like software development,
like how to connect things together and like make things flow and like account for all the different like I guess needs that people want.
I think what my interviewer told me when I was doing the decomp round was like, we want you to write a document that can kind of be a reference to people for like the next 2 weeks as to like how to build this system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like you're giving this to a team, and then maybe the team will read it and say, oh, okay, so that's how you build the front end, that's how you build the back end, that's how you build the database. Gotcha. It's all high level. You don't need to write any code or anything like that.
Oh, okay. So it's just like a like foundational like sketch of like everything. And,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
Gotcha.
So like, and for that, there's like lots of like system design, I guess like resources out there. I can't really think of any off the top of my head, but like also like if you're doing this for like an internship or for a new grad, they're not expecting you to like be the Da Vinci of software during the interview, right? Yeah. Like they understand, and they'll give you like leeway when needed, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I guess one thing I don't think you had it here, but like there's one final round after that, which is the hiring manager chat. And that's like kind of like a free for all. Like the hiring manager can ask you whatever they want. And
like technical questions or like...
Yeah, they could ask you a technical question. They could ask you all behavioral. From what I've heard, what they can sometimes do is they'll look at your weakest round between learning, decomp, and coding, and they'll ask whatever your weakest round was. And basically like have you like quickly do that during the final round interview. And then what the hiring manager is doing is basically they probably have like 3 or 4 resumes, and they're saying, okay, we can only hire 1 intern on the team, right? And then they interview these 4 people, and then they make a final decision as to like who to take. Basically.
Wow, so that's pretty competitive.
Yeah, I would say the hiring manager round is actually the most competitive out of all of the rounds at Palantir. Like, you couldn't do like pretty on like everything else and still pass, but like the hiring manager round, it's like someone making a decision out of like a pool of however many people. So there has to be some culling going on.
The dude, the dude is like specifically like looking for your weaknesses and see like if you can
like adapt and like
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Cool. And then here are some more questions. So like which track were you on, like Dev or Delta? I don't know what Dev or Delta is, by the way. And why did you choose it? And then do you have like any tips for like preparing for Palantir interview process? Like is there like a leak code question amount that you should solve, or is leak code like completely irrelevant? And then like the balance between system design and data structures and algorithms. And I think you've touched on this, but like maybe give like a percentage of like saying like, hey, it's 50-50 or it's 70-30, anything?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I guess for question number 3, which track were you on? I was a dev. But I can also explain kind of the difference between the two.
Yeah,
like
what is
dev and
delta?
So the delta is like what's called like a forward deployed engineer, forward deployed software engineer, and these are the guys who like take Palantir software and actually like implement it for like a business. So like let's say I'm like, I don't know, the Navy, and I want to start using Palantir, right? I'll call up like Alexander Karp, be on the phone, like be like, yo, I want to use your software. And then Alexander Karp is going to like send a bunch of these forward deployed engineers to like look at what you have currently and how you can like set up Palantir to like work with what you have.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so they're kind of like software consultants, is how I would describe them.
Yeah.
And then dev is sort of like more standard like software engineer, what you see in big tech, like basically just like writing software on a daily basis. You're not going to like anywhere to like deploy something specifically for anyone. Yeah, it's standard software engineering. And
Gotcha.
yeah, there's I think one thing to note is that like once you're a Palantir, you kind of realize that the boundary between these two, while it's distinct, it's also like if you are a Delta who like really likes software engineering work, you can like kind of like prove yourself and like do dev work and eventually move over to the other side, and vice versa for a dev to a Delta. It's all like pretty flexible from my experience.
Gotcha. And then do you have like any tips for preparing, or like what do you wish you knew back then?
Yeah. So I think my biggest tip for preparing is to like honestly like review that system design, because I feel like that's the most difficult part of Palantir, of the interview process. That is, maybe like take a database class. Like I feel like the one at Penn really prepared me well for.
Sys 545.
No, 4500.
Oh, okay,
I think
okay,
545
okay.
actually works too, because they do go over like database stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Like I mentioned this earlier, but there's not really that much of an emphasis on leak coding. Like it's not like it's not like they're gonna give you like a leak code hard and be like, yo, solve this in like 20 minutes or else you're fucked. Like that's not what they do, and I think that's, you know, I think they're better for that.
How many leak code problems have you solved on your account?
I was gonna say, dude, I saw your post,
Yeah.
and I was like, holy shit, this kid has solved more leak code problems than I have. I can check, but I think off the top of my head, like 400 problems?
400 problems? How many like hard versus medium versus easy?
Mostly mediums. I don't really spend that much time on easies or hards.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So don't spend all your time solving leak code problems, is what I'm hearing.
I mean, for Palantir, yeah. And I mean, I can go over this like a little bit later, but in my opinion, I think there's a lot of companies in quant that also do not look for like godly leak code skill, like competitive programming skill. Like I honestly, like, dead to rights, feel like I am not that good at like competitive programming or whatever. Like if I went on Code Forces and I tried to do like one of their contests, I would probably fail like miserably. Yeah, like, but I think like being able to like write code that's like readable and like explain your thought process, I think that's way more important than being able to be like good at like solving an extremely hard algorithms question.
Gotcha. And then I guess like for Palantir specifically, like between system design and DSA, like what's the preparation split like 50-50 or?
So I feel like actually like, okay, like if you're only preparing for Palantir, I'd probably like spend like 70% of my time like studying like system design, how to like build apps. I probably spend my time like actually building like a small little web app for myself, just to like understand like how it works. But I feel like that's probably bad advice for like general tech recruiting, which I think is a little bit more contingent on like being able to solve a legal medium like interview.
Hey, I'm ready for that.
Yeah, sir. But like, yeah, like, so I say like, yeah, if you're only recruiting for Palantir, do that. But if you are like recruiting in general, which I think is most people, I don't think that's like the correct advice.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That was very insightful right there.
Oh, thank you.
And then I guess more on the internship experience. You said that you were on dev and doing like a bunch of work where you were.
Sure.
Can you talk more about like the culture there? Like, what was your team structure like? Was it like a bunch of old heads like in AMD, or or like was there like a lot of mentorship from a lot of people? And did you have like any client interaction as an intern? Like, were you working with the
No,
Navy or like the military on like,
Hell no,
let's install this in your Humvee now and figure it all out? Like, can you tell me everything
Dude,
about
I don't even
that?
have a clearance. I feel like they probably can't talk to me. Like someone would be very angry if I talked to like someone in the Navy because I just do not have any U.S. military clearance.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but so as I mentioned earlier, I was in Apollo. The team I was on is called like Apollo SAS, which from what I understand doesn't really mean anything. It's just kind of a name that was invented. Like it used to mean something, but it just like doesn't mean anything anymore. But I guess like to the question of like my involvement, I in my opinion, like what I felt was that like I was just kind of like a regular new grad who just joined. Like that was kind of like the experience that I felt because like I mentioned earlier, I was really just like doing whatever my mentor was doing, and I was like working on whatever the team was working on. So yeah, like I was able to like. I guess I guess one thing that was kind of interesting that I don't think was necessarily true of my other internships is that like I had a chance to talk with a lot of people who were not on my team, like just like to like solve general problems because like I was working on a service, maybe someone wrote a line of code but they were like from some other office or from some other team, right? Like I could just like Slack them, ask them a question, and you know we would work together to figure it out. Yeah. Do you have any like other specific questions that you want to ask about that? And I guess like I'm not too sure. All right, sure, yeah.
It was just that like so you enjoyed it. You were able to work on a bunch of little different things.
Yeah.
But there's no like clear like this is your product. This is what you do. It was just like a sort of like umbrella statement of like this is the type of work you'll be doing.
Exactly. Like I feel like I was able to learn a lot because I was like working on a bunch of random shit just throughout the time. Like I was there, and that was also partly because my team was like kind of like in this weird state where we were like managing like 4 or 5 different services that had nothing to do with each other. Like normally at Palantir, like what happens, or I think normally at any team what happens is like you write this service and then you have to manage it, right? Like if something goes wrong, then you know someone files a support ticket and it goes to you, your team, right? Because you wrote it. For us, like we were a newly established team and we were just handed a bunch of random services that like no one else was managing, and we were supposed to just like A, figure out how that service worked, and B, like handle any issues that came up from the rest of Palantir.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. And then these are some more questions, but like what was the impact of your relatively short duration, but like what was the impact of your work? And then, like, how's the work-life balance at Palantir? Like, did you ever feel overwhelmed? Did you always like receive, I guess, like a good amount of guidance and support? And what was like the most challenging part of your internship?
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So I feel like, like I definitely felt like my work was meaningful at Palantir. In fact, I think as a litmus test to how meaningful my work was, I accidentally fucked up a bunch of services, and I feel like it had some organizational issues that I had to like. I had some random people from places I had no idea just like pinging me. I was like, is this because of you? I think you broke this. So like that was kind of like a litmus test of how impactful it felt. But yeah, like I was I think that one nice thing about Palantir is that like they really let you like start shipping stuff like really quickly. Like I think I was like popping up PRs like within my first week, and like I like PR count is obviously not the best metric of like how much work or how impactful your work was, but like in the end I had like probably like 40 or 50 PRs done by like the end of my internship.
Wow.
And so like I was able to make a lot of changes and do a lot of stuff during my internship.
Cool.
And then like, sorry, what?
Yeah. I was just saying, like, did you ever feel overwhelmed doing all this work, or?
No, actually, I felt it was very, very chill. Like, I think especially compared to Optiver, like where I was before, like it really felt like Palantir kind of respected your time. Not that Optiver didn't. Like I have certain qualms with my experience there, and I could talk about that later. But like I felt like it was very, very much like a 10 to 5 type situation, and I think like I never really felt particularly overwhelmed. Like I think my team was always there to like support me if like I had too much on my plate, which I don't think I really actually had too much on my plate at any time. But yeah, like I could always ask questions. There were always people in there to help me. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Oh yeah, and then this concludes our episode. And then we're gonna go into Optiver in the next episode. So I'm gonna end this video really quickly.
Oh yeah, for sure.